Welcome, everyone, to the WellMed Charitable Foundation Caregiver Teleconnection. We are lucky enough to have today to have Dr. Jamie Huysman, who has an incredible set of experiences personally and professionally that he's talked about in the past. He also has a beautiful daughter. And he's going to talk today about 10 steps to understanding how to develop a spiritual plan in our lives. And we are so looking forward to, I'm so looking forward to that. Okay, and with that, Dr. Jamie Huysman, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
I was. First, I'm going to say that the more I did the presentation, I could have picked 50 steps, but I actually did 7, Evelyn, instead of 10. I know it said 10, but I figured that, well, we can discuss Q&A, the other 3. I felt that I would empower the audience to be able to come up with what they felt. For me, as a therapist, I'm a psychologist, and I'm a social worker, and I'm a compassion fatigue trauma therapist. Just like you, I believe in behavior being psychosocial, biopsychosocial, biologically predisposed, psychologically induced, and socially reinforced. What we never talk about enough as a group is this concept called spirituality. And when I was asked to put together a topic as the Chief Compassion Officer for WellMed, I said, September is an ideal time for renewal. It's becoming autumn. We call it autumn, I guess, or fall in America, autumn in England, we say. It's becoming cooler. It's always been looked at a time of renewal. And I said, let's tackle a difficult subject because we have a very divisive landscape, not just in America, but around the world. Everybody seems to be in their own file cabinets. When we talk about religion, we're in our religious file cabinet. We see life through the ideology of the way we grew up. So I knew it'd be a difficult conversation. I would love to always start with caregivers because caregivers to me are my homies, the people who I really feel most connected with, and those who are going through the challenging times of taking care of a loved one. And sometimes this concept of spirituality seems so foreign. So today it's the elusive topic and the path to spiritual renewal. Now, it's not going to be 10, it's going to be 7, but we're going to open it up for conversation, I hope, at the end. No matter what you do, no matter how you do it, no matter whether it's spirituality, no matter it's your medical health, no matter it's your psychological health, social health, which you're going to find out all these are in your hands. It creates your brain response. You've got to take your oxygen first. You got to, which is the name of the first book I wrote with Lisa and Dr. Rosemary Laird. If we're not realizing that we have 19 seconds of useful consciousness when that metaphorical plane goes down, and that if we haven't taken it, both of us will perish, shame on us. If we're not taking it because our loved one who has a chronic terminal acute illness is fearful as can be and needs somebody on 2 feet to bear witness to their pain, then we need to take it simply as medicine for them. But realize taking your oxygen first, which is the name of the series, has got to be what we emerge from today. So I do an experiential exercise here. We're talking about spirituality. I know myself included. I get, sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 backwards. I get away from my own spiritual self. I get into the automaton routines of WellMed, of United, of my own family, of being a father, a single father. So I'm going to ask you to go along with me for 15 seconds. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. As a trauma therapist, your answers all lie within, never without. And with your eyes closed, I'm going to ask you to take 15 seconds and go inside. Go inside and say, why did I tune in to this spirituality thing, this elusive topic? Why was it me? Why was it this one? Why did I want to spend the next hour just understanding and listening to that? Okay? So go deep inside and find your why. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. I'll bring you out. Let's do it starting right now. Okay, let's open our eyes. Realize that, many of us gotten off that beaten path, right? Many of us don't really look at our spirituality. That is our deep, deep blanket of love that helps us get through the materialistic things, the painful things, the suffering things. Literally, our spirituality is our answer. Sometimes it's not us. I get it. Sometimes we in that codependent response. I certainly am. Sometimes I'm anxious and overwhelmed, and my spirituality at 6 in the morning is not kicking in. And then I have to look at that girl on my back. You know, I'm an AARP daddy. So sometimes she is the spiritual reason. She is my legacy. She is everything I need to help change in this world to make it a better place. So that's my internal motivation. You went down and found something, I'm sure, hopefully unique to you as to why you're here. But why I ask you to do that is internal motivation is always better than external. External is usually codependency, people, places, and things. Internal motivation is a river of life that runs within you, never runs dry. Okay. When you have that river, it's a why, it's a purpose, a dream. You're going to keep going ahead, even 3 forward and 2 backwards on the spiritual journey. I bet you didn't know that the spiritual journey begins in your hands, in the palm of your hands. And I bet you didn't know that it really is about your brain, literally your brain, how you grew up. Remember, you've heard me do a lot of these adverse childhood experiences, concepts, the fight, flight, and freeze response, coming out of a very difficult childhood, as I did, not understanding what a relationship was like, being in a war zone, seeing the world when after coming out of there where I had no power as a child. I was like a prisoner of war, just like all of you. And I came out looking at the world as being quite, dangerous, quite unstable. We all do. But do you have any idea that you're really, the ability to get on your feet here in September, start looking at renewing your life and spirituality is in the palm of your hands, and it's called your brain. I'll get to it. I have to always bring it up because I sit on the advisory board of the Polyvagal Institute. I want you guys to all look at that very closely. I'll put it in the chat room, or we'll send it to you later. Go to polyvagalinstitute.org. There is nothing more important for a caregiver. Caregivers need to befriend their neurosystem. Okay, you need to understand what a ventral vagal is, where you feel connected to the greater world. That's spirituality. You need to understand when you're in that sympathetic, your danger place. Right? Excuse me, that you need to run or fight back. You need to also understand when you're in the vagal place where you can't even cope. And you're basically collapsed and shut down like a possum playing dead, so the predator doesn't eat it. These are coming from our childhood responses. These may be the greatest barriers to us finding renewal in our lives about spirituality. Spirituality, and you're going to understand this a little bit later even more, is befriending your neuro system. Okay. So I'd love you to look at the future science. We didn't know much in the caregiving world. We didn't even know much in the parenting world before the 1990s, when Dr. Stephen Porsche and others started realizing that trauma, not that trauma of, that death-defying physical, sexual, military trauma, the traumas that come from narcissistic injuries as a child. We didn't realize how much that had an effect on us ever reaching a spiritual place in life. Basically, we take 10 years, or let's say our families do, because we can't resist in some way screwing us up. And then it takes 7 years to try to get out of it. So let's understand a working definition, because I'm on kind of dangerous ground, I always call, when I talk about spirituality, because there's so much crossover with religion. I want to have a working conversation, but to do that, I want to have a working definition, okay? Spiritual growth. It's a process of shedding our wrong and unreal concepts, thoughts, beliefs, and ideas, and becoming more conscious and aware of our inner being. What is that? That means what we're doing at WellMed with this program called ESRT, Emotional Support Response Team. We're asking you to understand that a working definition of spiritual growth is also self-awareness. Okay, it's getting beyond ego, getting beyond the images. We'll talk about the images much more next month's program. Okay, let me explain to you. It is truly spiritual growth is getting beyond things and becoming self-aware. The meaning of spirituality is to be healthy and happy, to be physically, emotionally, and mentally strong. And we can't find this with imagination. I'm a trauma therapist. The only way you can find this is practice, practice, practice. And guess how that practice comes to you? Experientially. Yeah. So we're going to talk about renewal of putting a plan together for spirituality. But you can bet it's always going to be a complex trauma-driven strategy, which means it's always going to, the interventions will be from the heart, your body, not reading a book. I'll talk to you a little bit later on about reading a book, but it's always going to be found here. Can't find it in any other way. We must practice it. So the joy of spirituality is becoming an authentic caregiver, you guys. Joy is spiritual, far greater than happiness and far more robust. Okay, it's hard to understand that. The joy is becoming an authentic caregiver. And I'll get into that a little bit later about bringing the masks out, the things we need to take off, the getting closer to ourself and our soul. But it's September. I'm going to give you 7 ways to pull this off. But why are you, UK? I'm not going to ask you now. I mean, if you want to put in the chat, that's fine. I certainly, Evelyn will stop me. And anytime you have a question, she will. I'll have a lot of it answered. We can hopefully do it at the end. But I would love for you, on your why, I'm going to ask you again, why should we concentrate on spirituality? Well, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. I use Carl Jung. I'm a Jungian trained therapist, even though Carl Jung, to me, set a huge foundation. He is not the future of psychology. The future of psychology is the Polyvagal Institute, which I want you to look at. It is the way out better. But I also have deep respect for Dr. Jung. He was an amazing icon. And what he said here is true. We should concentrate on spirituality. It's the privilege of a lifetime, is to become who you really are, not for somebody wants you to be. And spirituality is pretty much that. So let's get religion out for the moment. Listen, I have a religion. I believe in God. I'm just going to say these disclaimers. This is not an anti-religion concept. Okay. And there is overlap. And I'll tell you where and why. And in America, we're a very religious society, right? In the 1700s, we found this country based upon religious principles. But we tend to have a great kind of confusion about the world of, basically religion and spirituality. I bet you all do as well. Okay. I know when I sent this out, or Tammy, my partner, sent it out, everybody defaulted to that. They really did. So let me ask you a question, and maybe we can, I don't know, can we open it up at all
Sure.
for an answer?
Absolutely.
Just on this one?
Absolutely.
So great. You see the top religions of the world. Okay. It's a little bit blurry, but obviously we became Christian country in the 1700s. Atheists are the next group: Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, bunch of other religions you can put together: Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, right? I mean, Sindhis. There's so many different religious ideologies. So let's go to Dalai Lama, who I felt was probably the most eclectic, big kind of oversight guy who would understand really the question, what was the best religion? So let me throw this open to the people out there. What do you think the Dalai Lama's response was? What was the best religion? Okay. I mean, I'm going to throw out there, I really thought he'd say Buddhism myself. But I don't
folks, if you're on the phone, just press *6. And if you're on the Zoom, you can unmute yourself. You can go to the chat room. You can put your hand up. I have a little website, and I can see what you're doing here. We'd love to hear from you.
I'll give you spoiler alerts if not, but is there anybody who actually would understand or think that when the Dalai Lama was asked years ago, what was the best religion that he thought in this world it would be? All right, here's your
Buddhist.
Yeah, Buddha, of course. Wouldn't you think that? He didn't. He did not. He said that the best religion in this world is the one that makes you the best person. So there you are. The best religion in this world is the one that makes you the best person, which I really love. So what were the distinctions? Well, there's a complementary piece about religion. I mean, the beauty of religion, and I'm going to say it's the beauty of it, because as you know me, I'm a neurologically driven person. So there's emotional self-regulation and healthy social regulation. And if you go to your church or your synagogue or your ashram, you know, you name it, you go to wherever a place of worship is, there's emotional regulation, and then there's social, right? You're with people, like-minded people, hopefully non-toxic people, people that meet you halfway. It's a beautiful thing. And so what religion can do, let's take it, addiction. Many of you may have addicts and alcoholics in your family. I certainly do. So when one becomes aware, says their life is unmanageable, we send them to where? AA, NA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Codependency Anonymous. So AA is the thing that opens them up, but it's really emotional regulation, because they have steps to do, and they have social regulation. They have people to do the steps with, right? So really religion is emotional and social regulation, okay? And it can be what we call spirituality, or it can be a great frame for spirituality. But I always love this, is that often many people get into religion because religion is for people sometimes afraid of going to hell. But spirituality was said as for people who have already been there. Does that make some sense? Because when you actually go through the living deal, whether it was Moses, whether it was Allah, whether it was Jesus' steps, I mean, let's face it, if you go through what they went through, when, you know, the crucifix, the oceans parting with the Egyptians coming and starving in the desert. If you go through Muhammad's, you know, then you become more shamanic. You understand it. It's trauma, basically. They went through heavy trauma. So, but spirituality is also that. Many times people find spirituality is when their knees hit the ground. I remember I talked to you about the addict and alcoholic. Spirituality is for people who may have been there. And then they find out, I've got to do something more for myself. I cannot just go to religion. If I just go to religion, it's just going to be like shooting up, right? It's going to be like drinking. It's going to be an external validation for an internal need. Spirituality is coming from within. It's making sense of trauma, complex trauma, PTSD, okay? So let's clear it up. Religion is belief in someone else's experience. That's fine. There's Bibles written, you know, Old Testament, New Testament. There's parables. There's things to learn. You know, my daughter goes to religious school. Your daughter may. I don't know. There's religion is belief in someone's experience. Spirituality is having your own experience. It's bringing up your own experience. Okay, it's not relying. It doesn't make them mutually exclusive. In fact, I always thought the greatest people who are deeply most religious have God within, not outside. Why? Because they're having their own experience. So the best religion are all religions, guys. All paths lead to the righteous. If, as a person who is a therapist, and whether I refer to Christian counselors, Jewish counselors, I refer to Islamic counselors, people, if that's where a person connects, I always have them start where the patient is at. I don't try to change them. But I'll say this, and I agree with the Dalai Lama, all major religious traditions carry basically the same message, right? Love, compassion, forgiveness. The important thing is they should be part of our daily lives, right? More than opening up a book, more than understanding it, but from within. So when I mentioned to you, reading a book is not going to give you a religion. It's not going to give you spirituality. It's going to give you knowledge in your head. To get to spirituality, you have to experience it. You have to feel it. And caregivers have to balance it. Balance the experiential, taking care of your own self, with the material stuff, with what I have to do for my loved one, what I have to do for the things around me. But let me explain to you, if that is not feng shui, what you're looking at now, if that's not balanced, you'll never find spirituality, okay? You'll be stuck in the material world, as Madonna would say. So for us, we have to understand spirituality. We have to use September as putting together a plan of action. And I always say this, and I'm going to use this forever. Look, today is the first day of the rest of your life, right? And sometimes we procrastinate. But if that doesn't work out for you, then tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. Well, shoot, look who said that, Bob Saget. So I'm going to ask you, don't wait. Don't wait till tomorrow to start beginning to put your toe in the water of what spirituality may be for you today. Beautiful part about spirit is it's September, it's renewal, and there's kind of cool things I'm going to try to help you with. So let me put you through this. Okay, not 7, 6 steps. How's that? I you know what I wanted to do was stimulate conversation, because I kept thinking, how can I do an exhaustive search of 10? In my mind, in my heart, in my clinical, I'd rather do just 6 steps, because I think this group, and I think any collective group, it's not my content, guys. I'm not the Buddha. It's what we do together can come up with that. I want you first, and I have to give you a clinical truism. Okay, spirituality is very difficult for one sector of people in the clinical world, and that's called personality disorders. There's 7%, and that's underreported, who have an attachment disorder. Real quick clinical lesson here. This is a poor person that doesn't want to be evil, but tends to be evil later in their life. Why? Because they have an attachment disorder as a child. Why is that? Between 3 and 4 and 5 years old, parents didn't give a damn about them. Okay, they never showed them emotional feedback. They never did anything for them that created what we call object constancy. So the kid never knew if the parents would return, because they really never knew the parent was there. We call it an attachment disorder. Okay, so 7 or 8% of America and the rest of the world were raised by people who had no empathy and no accountability. And unfortunately, these people go on to become fighting machines. They go on to run companies, sometimes countries. We're looking at Putin right now, a very malignant narcissist. You look at his first 10 years of his life, he certainly has a personality disorder. You look at Hitler's first 10 years of life, there's a personality disorder. Kim Jong-un, Jim Jones, you name it. Personality disorders cannot really find spirituality. Personality disorders, you need empathy, you need accountability. So here's your step 1. I'm going to get to you guys, because I think you guys have answers more than I do. Even though I tell you not to read, I want you to start reading. Isn't that sort of oxymoronic and kind of strange? We use at WellMed the 4 agreements, which is really very cool because it's adapted to the workplace. So when we bring in what's called emotional support response team, we're basically a higher performing team. We're basically a more psychologically safe place, because somebody's in touch with their own selves and not living somebody else's life. We bring a transformative program called the 4 agreements. It's not right here, but I'd like you also always to get that book too. It's a great book. It really uncovers spirit. It opens up a window for you, okay? And the cool part is the process of reading one of these books uncovers the spirit, okay, and gets beyond the ego. So you'll start thinking about what's beyond the ego. The ego is this kind of moderator we have in our lives between our conscience and our main drives, the superego and the id. The ego kind of creates an image. Now, egos are kind of healthy until that's all you have, this ego. Okay, so start looking at some books. There's another book that's not here. Maybe you could put that in also, Evelyn. My favorite book here is called When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, Chodron, who's a Buddhist. And she is a beautiful book. It helped my wife get sober, and it really makes sense of everything. But I'm not going to tell you, this audience, which ones really do it for you. I think you're going to have to go into the New Age section of Barnes and Noble, or go on to Audible and start really putting yourself together. Okay. And a great question here. Why do these I'm going to assume, Betty, you're talking about personality disorders. Why do these leaders have it? Very easily said. The people who follow them are what we call flying monkeys. Flying monkeys do not have all 9 clinical indicators of personality disorders. The one I just mentioned to you do. Others are not looking at their own self, what you guys are doing here now, are not looking at their own accountability in their life, are not trying to go deeper into a meaningful life. Instead, they follow people like an alcoholic follows a drink. They think that their life will be solved through the narcissist. We call that a dyad. Usually it's a codependent response, and they follow these people off a cliff. And then don't forget, when you're running a country like Putin, you can gaslight a whole nation. If you're responsible for all the TV, newspapers, and whatnot, gaslighting is something that's 5% true and 95% crap. And it's lies. So I tell my daughter, believe only what you see and what you feel, but not what you hear. So that's a great question, Betty. Unfortunately, you do have 7% personality disorders. Unfortunately, those 7% have 5 to 7 partners because they usually use people as supply. And then there's a bunch of children, unfortunately, that are also hit. So the collateral damage from them is everywhere. And right now, we're looking at one man who's ready to pull the nuclear bomb. And I think it's the greatest public health disaster. Great question. Great question. Why do they follow? That's why they follow. If they looked at their own stuff, if they looked at their own hell and got well, which is what trauma is, they wouldn't follow them. So I'm going to ask you to read spiritual and uplifting books. Think what you read. Okay, find out how you can use the information in your life, but look for the experiential things. Like Miguel Ruiz will talk to you about watching your life. Okay, Pema Chodron will do things about meditation and breath work. Do the experiential thing, but start getting in the mindset, September, of spiritually shifting your life. What's step 2? All right. As a trauma therapist, I can tell you that you are not going to be able to get to that spiritual place in your life until you start dealing with the inner demons of childhood, okay? And find a quiet place in your head that's not defaulting to fight, flight, and freeze. Ground yourself through trauma reduction techniques for at least 15 minutes every day. Whether it's breath work, okay? Guess what? Praying, that's actually a trauma reduction technique. Things that rewire the neural pathway. Our emotional response team, and hopefully, I think Tammy's on, hopefully she is later on, she'll tell you some cool places to go. But ESRT can assist to find you books and websites and teachers. But at the end of the day, trauma reduction techniques allow you to find more quietness, allow you to get on 2 feet instead of 1. Spiritual growth is the process of inner awakening, rising of the consciousness beyond the ordinary, everyday existence, and awakening to some universal truth. It means going beyond the mind. And remember that ego is a moderating image. I don't think we ever really get rid of that through our lives, but we can lessen it and start realizing who you are. I'm not sure any of you were on my module that was about authenticity. I think it was last month or month before. So critical. Trauma reduction techniques and getting rid of that. So it's not about having time, it's about making time. It's going to be found through trauma reduction techniques. Could be yoga, could be Pilates, could be walking around, could be crocheting. I don't know what blows your hair back, but it could be. Here's your step 3. You are more than your body. In fact, your body houses, unfortunately, the trauma. Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens within you. Always stay with the person who connects with their soul more than your body. It's another great book I'd like you to read, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, okay? The mind can do anything, but your body is really what's going to tell you everything. I want you to start trusting your body, doing experiential work, not listening to gaslighting of commercials, TV, narcissists, people out there who think they know more than you. You are, okay? Acknowledge the fact that you're a spirit with a physical body. That body is something I'd like you to take care of, but you're a spirit. The spirit has to be nurtured. The body itself, take care of, okay? It'll tell you a lot. But if you can accept the idea that you're spirit, it's going to change your attitude toward people, life, and the events and situations you go through. You are
Jamie,
more
please
than,
excuse me. Excuse me. Would you repeat the name of that book?
Sure. Which one was this one? The Body Keeps the Score?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the body keeps the score. His name is Dr. Bessel, Bessel, van der Kolk, V-A-N. He's a psychiatrist from Holland. Great guy. Bessel van der Kolk, V-A-N-D-E-R-K-O-L-K. So it's a great one, but he'll talk to you about how you can start concentrating on your soul and what your body, how the changes will happen in the body, how healthier you get, how less inflammation you'll have. Okay, if you
Thank you.
start concentrating, you bet. Step 4, I'm going to get to you guys in a minute. I want to hear more. Step 4 is also from my idol, my former kind of teacher, I'll call Carl Jung. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Look inside yourself. Okay, this is what self-awareness is. And into your own mind. That's becoming accountable in situations. Try to find out what it is that makes you feel conscious and alive. I know as caregivers, we tend to lose our focus taking care of others. But what is it that you found in your childhood, in your maybe middle age, in your older age, like I am, that blew your hair back? What made you feel conscious and alive? Okay, these kind of places popping up, I always see them, the wine and art shows, meeting people there. I think they're great. I'm a terrible artist, but I love going there because I love just having fun. There was something about it. My dad was an artist and still is, believe it, at 94. But that was something that interested me. TJ and I have people at WellMed who literally things like crocheting or sewing. Okay, but look into yourself now as a caregiver. Find out what makes you conscious and alive. What was your passion? Start understanding that there's a big difference between looking outside and having dreams and looking inside. Inside is self-awareness. Spirituality is self-awareness. Step 5. Guys, girls, you heard me say this often. The first 10 years of our life create who we are. The next 70 years create the path of how to get out of it. Okay, complex PTSD is something parents kind of, God love them. I know you don't want to hear it, but they didn't know much better. They probably parented you like their parents parented them, like their parents parented them. In our society, and you as caregivers will appreciate this the most, there's not a lot of teaching for caregivers or parents. Now, in the 90s, we find out that we are creating evil people. We really are. That attachment disorder, that Putin I'm talking about, he was a good kid. I don't think he ever wanted to be evil. No kid wants to be. But good parenting, you can avoid it. So I think that step 5 is I'd like you to start looking at life more positively. Well, that's an easy thing to say, right? My wife, who's in recovery for 12 years, she had to get out of her mind, she says. That was the most important thing for her recovery. Thinking positively was her being grateful for things that even, she had to push herself every day. Thank God I didn't get into a car accident today. Thank God my daughter didn't, end up into a treatment center today. Thank God whatever it was, she had to create her own gratitude list because she was in a negative thinking. Thinking positively is getting out of yourself. If you find yourself thinking negatively, immediately try to switch to thinking positively. That's where these experiential grounding techniques come. They take you from a dysregulated state to a regulated state. Strive to be in control of what enters your mind. In the 4 agreements, to be impeccable with your word. Be mindful of what you're saying to yourself. Be mindful that you're saying negative things. Open the door for the positive, close for the negative. Okay, I would like you all as a caregiver, if you can, to find a good therapist that is trauma-driven, that understands CPTSD, because the key to thinking positively to this audience is reparenting yourself. And you've heard me say what reparenting yourself is. It's being fair, it's being consistent, it's being available. It's what we did not necessarily totally have as a child. So finally, if you're using September to renew, and you're looking at us as to give you some guidance here, develop the happiness habit. When I do the breath work at the end, the hormone that you're going to create in less than 80 seconds is called oxytocin. It's a hormone that we call the happiness hormone. Okay, you can actually do physiological things. Only humans can do this. Okay, but I can say you can develop a happiness habit if you start doing breath work or emotionally regulating techniques on an ongoing basis as your own personal transformational coach. Happiness starts with you, not with your relationship. The other half, I don't want to hear that as a therapist. There is no other half. It's 2 holes. Not with your job. It's not a paycheck, okay? And not with money. It starts with you. And you can go inside, emotionally regulate, touch your soul. Always look at the bright side of life and strive to see the good, the funny and positive and everything. You think it's any accident that after 6 million people died, that a disproportionate amount of the comedians were Jewish after the Holocaust and still are? No. I mean, the autonomic nervous system literally is calmed by humor. Isn't it amazing? It's calmed by emotional regulation and social regulation. It was a way to stay safe in your body after the worst tragedies. So look at the bright side. This will help you develop a happy state of mind. Happiness comes from within you. I'm going to show you in breath work how to bring the happy hormone in. It's okay. Happiness comes from within you when you do not allow negative thoughts and feelings fill your mind. There is something called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, how you can stop the negative thinking. Don't let external circumstances decide your happiness for you. That is a tantamount to heroin addiction. Okay. Codependency is when people, places, and things tell us who we are. Those are the 6. Okay. Those are the 6. I know you're like me. Okay. Let me tell you the wisdom looking back as an AARP father, as you get to an age where you're tired of hiding behind whatever people think is correct. Next month, I'm going to talk about Halloween and taking off the masks, but your passion. And what Warren Buffett said best, who we all know the byproduct with profitability, was if you're going to start this spirituality journey and use September and those 6 steps, really finding your passion is not just careers and money. It's not just taking care of your parents or loved ones and, oh, I'm the best, or putting a cape on. It's about finding who you are, okay, which is the development of spirituality, the one you've buried beneath other people's needs. Okay, family caregivers. Okay, first responders. Does that make sense? It's important. This is an investment strategy by a brilliant man, but it's also an investment strategy into caregiving and to finding your spirituality. So the key, okay, the premise is emotional self-regulation. When you're feeling stress as a caregiver, you need to do breath work. You need to go out and walk. You need to just take a chill pill. You might want to go to your, faith-based program, chill with a healthy group of people. But emotional regulation is only up to you. If I ask you to be calm, you really think you can be calm? No. You have to really be in touch with your body. Okay. Self-regulation theory is a system of conscious personal management that helps us control what we think, say, and do. Guess what? It's called stress reduction. Okay. That's it. It needs an engine. Stress is a gift for you. Why is it such a gift? Because if you get in touch with stress, you won't get in touch with the burnout. Even burnout can be a gift, because if you're not in touch with burnout, you're gonna totally have vicarious traumatization, compassion, fatigue. So understand, to find spirit is to befriend your nervous system, is to do exactly this. It's to take the stress reduction and run with it. Even if you tell your loved one, your long distance brothers and sisters, your kids, I'm going to go take some time and I'm going to go relax. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to do some yoga, meditation, feedback. I'm going to go take some time and hang with a few friends, social group, support group. Whatever it is, it's important. Other thing which is important is don't hang around unhealthy people. I will say this in every presentation I do. If you're going to find spiritual growth, you're going to go beyond the ego and the image. The image, you're going to have to get rid of the toxic people in your life. They demand image from you, okay? You can't be yourself with them. They will get angry. You are no longer helpful to them, okay? So you have to worry about social regulation. The more healthy relationships a child has, the more likely she'll be able to recover from trauma and thrive. Relationships are and the agents of change. Healthy relationships are the most powerful energy you can find if you're going to develop really spirituality and use September. So I do not want you in any community that is somebody bossing you around, telling you what you do, living your life for you. Okay. I don't. I need you to be in a healthy, socially regulated place. And I need you to learn about boundaries from Dr. Brene Brown. She's very good. Everything I'm saying to you today is on YouTube, and I want you to continue. First, I want you to get the books. I don't know what book, Pema Chodron, I think is a great one to start when things fall apart, or, you can go to Eckhart Tolle, anybody, but learn boundaries. Chances are, if you're getting killed, and one of these questions about was a narcissist, you're getting killed and you're an empath, you need boundaries to protect the empathy. Empaths are necessary, but empaths will give everything. So when you fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, you're going to feel misused and mistreated. Okay. Expectations will always be the seeds of resentment. So if you're heading down a spiritual path in September, you got to get rid of the role, the Superman role. You're not strong because you're a caregiver. You're strong because you're weak. You know what weakness is. You know what vulnerability is. That's the path of trauma. That means going in. You won't follow a despot or a fascist if you follow a healing path for yourself, finding spirituality. You will not follow them. Okay. Got to understand your duality as a caregiver. You are sad. Embrace the sadness. It is the yin and the yang, but you do that and you can laugh. So I want you to be your own spiritual coach. I want you to take these steps, and I want you to get rid of the roles that you were given as a child. Most of us as hero children, right? I had to take care of people. Most of us think that that's our one thing in life. No, it's not. It was what we had to do to get out of childhood. If you're going to find spirituality, you're going to have to shed the child role you played. Okay. If it's your loved one that you're taking and she thought you were the worst daughter or son in the world, okay, good. Play what we call the gray rock. Don't fight it. Don't enable it. Don't jump into the tar pit, the toxic abusive pit. Just realize that you didn't get the mom or dad you needed. Get a therapist, do some grief work, take care of yourself, find your spirituality. Okay. So find, people that listen to you, that bear witness, that support you. In the caregiver experience, these people are medicine to you. Authentic people who will bear witness to your pain. They'll say negative things to your face. They will, but not behind your back. Okay. Do not hang with unhealthy people. If your family's unhealthy, get a third party, geriatric care manager, get a social worker, get somebody who can help you. Okay. Do not accept being devalued and criticized and judged by everybody. And look for a family of choice. If you're going to find spirituality and you need a safe group to do it with, it may not be your biological family. A lot of them don't want you to transform. I'm going to say transform anyway. Okay. Discover the truth about yourself. It's amazing, but you got to lean in, and it's worth the effort. So the 6-step process, start today. It's tough. Take a little step at a time. I bet you can go to Barnes and Noble or Audible and just find a little book and start looking at the experiential things in there. Let it open up a little window for you, and start in September, and realize I'm going to ask you to experiential things, but the longest journey you ever make is from your head to your heart. The only way you're going to find spiritual change, only way you're going to find renewal, is through the experiential side, the yoga, the Pilates, the walking, the breath work, the meditation. That's it. Because the body will learn, the mind will forget. So with that, let me take a look at the chat, and then I'm going to throw it out there and ask you all, what are the 4 sort of steps do you think that there may well be that I could add? I didn't want to add what I saw, because I think you all do have the Holy Grail. And I'm going to give you a copy of this. Absolutely, Dorothy. I think it's great. Anytime you want a copy of what I have, feel free to. But at the end of the day, start taking it very slowly. You can always get in touch with us at any time. So let me open it up, Evelyn. And before we get to breath work, I'd like to see who else believes another step to self-awareness, spirituality, and our soul is. Let me open it
Okay,
up.
folks, for those of you on the phone, just press *6. For those of you who are on the Zoom call, you could press unmute and get off mute, or you can use the chat room, or you can put your hand up. And I have a little website. I'm sorry?
I know, I'm gonna look for 4 more. That's it.
Oh, 4 more.
4 more
Looking
steps.
for 4 more. Okay. Come on, we need help here.
Yeah, because you guys have lived your own life, and I bet you there's something you've done that brought you to a cool little experiential place that we're not even mentioning. So use this as a support group. You can put it into the chat, or certainly you can open up and say it. Every one of us is going to say, how'd you do it? So feel free.
Well, I can share a few
Yeah,
things.
go
Oh,
ahead.
no, wait, here we go. Betty's saying, well, trying to transform, how do I deal with the toxic personality that I have to work with?
It's a great question. And I'm going to tell you, I'm writing a book. It'll be out in 3 months, but let me give you the heads up here. It's not easy. Okay. But the book is called Targeted Toxic Abusive Relationships. Understand this. You cannot change that person. I hate to say that, Betty. That person's like a hurricane. It's at a category 5. What can you do? You can deal with your responses with that person. If you happen to take care of it, I think I did a presentation last month. I'll do it again if ever you guys request, on high conflict caregiving. Because if you're taking care of somebody with a toxic personality, it's torture. But what I call, and I'd love you to Google it, is you got to become a gray rock. It's called the gray rock theory. What's a gray rock? Well, you don't notice gray rocks when you walk, do you? No, I don't want you to bite the bait. You're never going to win against these people. They became this toxic at 3 and 4 years old. They're better fighters than you. I always say, if you want to fight with them in the ditch, it's not going to work. Okay. Why? Pigs like it, and you'll just get muddy. So at the end of the day, you can. I need you to understand the gray rock syndrome, Betty. I need you kind of not to engage. I need you to do just whatever you need to do, which is the necessary stuff. I need you to obviously get a lot of mind, body, spirit work for yourself. I need you to get another thing too. There's a book. If you're ever exposed to these people in great quantity, maybe you could put it in. If you could, Evelyn, it's called How to Thrive, Not Just Survive, with CPTSD. So these are children of narcissists, or partners of narcissists, or toxic people. And it's written by a fabulous counselor named Pete Walker, Walker. So if you grab a book, he's got some very cool experiential things in there, Betty. He'll give you some great recommendations. Unfortunately, 7% of the population are very toxic. It comes from a terrible parenting and attachment disorder. And I do feel bad that you got one. I think it's great to have a therapist who can help you through it. It is a psychopathology. It's diagnosable. And so you have to adjust. You can't bite the bait. You cannot fight these people. Okay. You've got to take care of yourself and practice the gray rock syndrome.
And it was a really good question, because to know that you're working with the toxic person and that you feel like you need to do something about it is right where we're going here.
And I don't know if TJ is on. TJ, are you on? No, or maybe not. TJ is my diet partner, but we have a website on the charitable foundation, and I'd like for everybody to go to it. It's for ESRT. And I have to tell you, if you go to the Wellman Charitable Foundation, it'll help you, because I've got a presentation there that you can access on high conflict caregiving, and it's how to work with toxic loved ones.
Ann Deek would like to ask a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Hi. I love that you call it the gray rock syndrome. Now I have a name for it. One of the things I had to learn was exactly what you just said. I wish somebody had told me that, years and years ago. What I figured out was, don't engage. I figured out, kind of be in the background, go along with it. Don't use triggers, that type of thing. You're never going to win. You're never going to win. And there's two things. You're never going to win because they will hit below the belt. You usually, apparently, we are people who have a moral compass, and we won't go below the belt, even when it's almost life and death. Okay. So they don't have any conscience when it comes to that. They just say the meanest everything that they can do, which also means that you can't reveal anything personal. On the days when things are going well, that is not a day to start talking about something you have a concern or you're feeling insecure or whatever, because you will hear about it again in the next week or two. For
They will not
example,
change. They
yeah,
will not change.
and they will never, ever, ever, ever change.
Yes.
Ever.
So no, don't get close. We have two ways of dealing with it. I have my patients. One is no contact, which obviously if you have a mother, father, you listen, you can go no contact with if your kids are 18 and older, and I would suggest it. But there's also modified contact for caregivers, and that is the gray rock approach. So I have to tell you that you will not change them, and you're 100% right. They are better fighters than you'll ever be.
Yes.
And if you think that if you have no empathy and accountability, you could do anything. Why I know that? I'm a forensic psychologist. All of those guys usually are in jail.
Yes. I also found if you can have a plan, start to make a plan, and it might be that you don't get out for 5 more years because you need your kids to be older, you need to find a better job. That helps you hang on because you know there is an end point.
Exactly. And get some support. And and that's the beauty. Men have a hard time because I guess until Johnny Depp finally talked about it, but men have a hard time. Women have, unfortunately, tragedy of domestic abuse shelters.
Yes.
And so men don't report much, but whatever you do, what they do is they also have flying monkeys. So they'll try to turn the world on you and they'll smear you to death. Get rid of those guys too in your life and stay with what's real. The only revenge you've got is to heal your life with these people and get away from them.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to go into some breath work and give your time back to you. Because this was created, this is a wonderful conversation we just had. Dysregulation is the attachment disordered person. Always realize that narcissist who has low self-esteem, but absolutely will fight you to death, has nothing inside. They're depressed. They're dysregulated. They're by themselves and not using other people. They're hopelessly, and so the attachment disorder is the personality disorder. Now, we have the same sort of issues. What we need to do is breathe, use breath work, use emotional regulation technique. So when you're feeling dysregulated, I want you to feel regulated. This is how you find spirit. Spirituality is found by living in the present. Spirituality is learned on taking care of your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, emotional regulation. We use breath work. I use it with cops and firemen, emergency medical technicians, because it's the one way to access your neurosystem. And really, that's where your spirituality has to come, with a calm autonomic system. People that was just described to you are always dysregulated. They're never calm. Okay, you can do this. You can use what I'm about to show you to get you on 2 feet, transform your life. It's an experiential thing that cops use today in going into SWAT situations. So I'm going to do it with you now. I'm going to show you that you can change your mind. This is where the fight, flight, freeze response. If you're going on a spiritual path, you can reparent your mind, become more fair, consistent, and available. Do the emotional regulation. This is what start in September. I'm happy to get with you. There's a lot of cool grounding techniques you can start with. You don't have to sit on a mountain in Tibet, but you can change your brain. This is called neuroplasticity. So I'm going to show you can unlock the power of your vagus nerve. You can do it through breath work. If you don't want to do the breath work, you don't have to. When I ask you to close your eyes, you go to a safe place you once felt, saw, experienced. And you can also pray. You can meditate if you'd like, or just stay silent. It's a grounding technique too. But if you want to do the breath work, here's how we do it. We're going to breathe in through our nostrils for 4 seconds. It's cool. It's refreshing. We're going to keep it in our mind for up to 7 seconds. So we just feel it. If you want to picture some guided imageries, rainbows and daffodils, you can. But when you exhale, exhale loudly. Exhale like this for 8 seconds. That's what triggers the vagus nerve response. So we use 478 because it's scientifically produced. I'd like you to go to drwild.com. And after we get done with this, he's on YouTube. It does a 2-minute video, especially if you're in a toxic relationship. I can tell you, you cannot do enough breath work throughout the day when you're dealing with a toxic individual. So let's all try it together. I'll throw it over to you, Evelyn, to end the session and give you guys a huge hug. And hopefully you use September as the beginning of a spiritual plan. You know, life is painful, but pain is inevitable. Suffering is not. Okay, let's all close our eyes, put our feet on the ground, feel the floor through our shoes. If we've got shoes on, if we're barefooted, feel the floor through our feet with our back upright with respect. Let's do 4, 7, 8, 4 times. Breathe in now through your nostrils for 4 seconds. Keep it for up to 7 seconds. Now, blow out with passion for 8. Breathe in the calmness for 4 seconds. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7 seconds. Pull out for 8. Breathe in the calmness for 4. Keep it. Swish it around for up to 7. Now, blow out, trigger the vagus nerve for 8. Last time. Breathe in the calmness for 4 seconds. Keep it. Trigger. Allow it to sit there for 7 seconds. Now, trigger the oxytocin. Blow out for 8. With your eyes still closed and feet on the ground, go inside your body and scan it. Spirituality does begin biochemically, and you did this miracle intervention. Only humans can do it. And you just produced oxytocin, which is a hormone, connects to your neurotransmitter. Okay? You can shift the chemistry of your body any day. If you're with a toxic individual, you can tell them, look, I'm good. I'll see you in 80 seconds. I'll go out and breathe, come back and not engage. Okay? But what you've done here is an act of self-compassion. It's your act of really planning your spiritual renewal in September. So if you can start using it, be wonderful. Open your eyes, come back to our meeting and understand that breath work is a moment of self-compassion. Moment of self-compassion changes your day. A string of moments could change the course of your life. So find the spirituality. Use this time. Go deeper than the ego. Go deeper than the body. Understand that the soul, it's befriending your emotional self, your neurological system, okay? Happy to get this to you. You guys really do have the answer. I think you know it. Stay co-regulated in healthy situations, emotionally regulate, and be the change you want to see in all others. Take your oxygen first and know that better things are coming. They are. So keep calm and just breathe. Evelyn, it's all yours.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamie. It's always just such a pleasure listening to you, learning from you. I wanted to let everyone know that in a couple of days, you'll be getting a post-session questionnaire. It will contain all of the resources that Dr. Jamie mentioned, especially those books or things that were not part of his presentation, because you'll be able to go on the podcast and see his presentation over and copy whatever you like from there. Now, if you're not registered for this presentation today, if you've got this number from a friend, you'll need to call the WellMed Charitable Foundation customer service representative and register. And the great thing about doing that is you'll not only get the resources from this podcast, from this presentation, you will also get the calendar, which are amazing because every week, every month, they strive so hard to put great presenters who are experts in their field with topics that are really relative to caregivers. And we have one left this month. And that's next Wednesday, September 28th. Going to be very interesting. COVID-19, monkeypox, and flu, fall 2022 caregiver update. And that's with Dr. Elliot Montgomery Sklar and Lucy Bariluk. And if you've listened to them before, there are many podcasts where Dr. Sklar has talked about not just COVID-19, but many flus, many public health issues, and he really understands, what's going on. And he's on calls with the FDA with the Public Health Association of America. He really has a pulse of what's going on. So he's a great person to listen to. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one. And also, I would like to thank all of you caregivers for taking your time to be with us today. Thank you for your input and your comments. We love that. I would like to also thank the Wilmette Charitable Foundation for the wonderful job they're doing of not only planning these and recording these, but also that podcast that they have. Their website is amazing, caregiverteleconnection.org or wellmed.net. And Jamie, you have the last word.
Well, Betty, why don't you send in that recommendation? I would love to do a series on toxic people and how to deal with it. So I'd be happy to. So my last word to everybody is be kind to yourself. If you have to be around a toxic person, be a gray rock. Don't bite the bait. Don't go into the tar pit, right? The greatest revenge in life is healing. Use September to start finding that soul, that spiritual self. Those people around you, God love them, have compassion. They didn't want to be evil, but get away. Enjoy your life. Take good care. Thank you for this time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.